We're ready to go. We are recording. So let me pull up that invitation that I just did. Attachments. Pursuant to Governor Baker's orders of March 12th, 2020, all municipal meetings are allowed to be held remotely, and as long as access can be provided to the public, these will be considered legal and binding meetings. At this Finance Committee meeting, there are members available who will comment on certain things necessary, and we may commence the meeting with a roll call vote, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. We have quite a few of us on the Zoom call this evening. So I'm going to start with a roll call for attendance. Sarah, please.
Here.
Steph?
Here.
Robert?
Yeah.
Jack?
Here.
Nate?
Here.
George?
Here.
And I am present as well. Once again, we don't have any minutes to approve from last meeting. Hopefully that will, we're on our way to getting someone to do those minutes for us.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Yes.
On the call this evening is Kiera Oleksak. She's registered as Natalie on your screen, but I think we're fixing that now. There she is. She was onboarded over the weekend, so she's joining us as our new transcriber of Finance Committee meeting minutes. So welcome to the Finance Committee meeting, Kiera.
Hi, thank you.
Fantastic. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Sometimes the meetings go pretty quickly as far as lots go back and forth. So just do the best you can. Thank you. So I think we're just going to move right into, it looks like we have quite a bit on the agenda. So we're going to move right into the community development presentation. Karen Green and her team are going to be presenting. Hi, Karen. If you're on mute. Still on mute.
I have been doing that all day long. I'm sorry. Pat, will you share the presentation? If you want to give me a minute, I can load the presentation as well, if that's a help, Mr. Chair.
That would be fine.
Just give me 1 second. Come on. There we go.
You're up, Karen.
Have you got it on there, Pat?
I do.
Hold on, now I gotta go back. Oy.
You sent it as a PDF, so I have to show it this way, but
I sent it. I have lost my Zoom screen now. I don't know why. Oh my gosh. This never happens to me. Come on.
Everyone can see it if you can just read it. You're live and you're on camera.
Okay, I'm good. I can see my screen. So did you want to launch so there's two presentations prepared for tonight. One is the Community Development Department budget. The other is the Community Preservation Committee presentation. If it's okay by you guys, I'd prefer to do the department budget first. I know that I have folks joining the meeting later who may be able to answer questions that you may have.
That's fine.
Okay, great. So Pat, you want to?
That is Community Development FY22 budget presentation, Karen.
Pat, all we're seeing is
I don't see it.
a screen with a USB drive of a bunch of files.
Oh, my. My apologies.
Lots of them, lots of files.
Yeah, there are lots of files.
We need a double click.
It says I'm sharing, so I'll stop sharing and we'll try that again. My apologies.
Again, Pat, get the hammer.
Well, that's it again. So I thought we were sharing that. Okay. It's down. To there. I'll share it again. And that's CPA. I am so sorry. CPA has come out, but this one hasn't. Let me try it again with the USB drive. It didn't open it up. USB FinCom budget template up and open, minimized, back to screen share, and it's still the USB drive. Doesn't like it.
Pat, if you want me to, Pat, if you stop sharing, I can try my screen.
I've got to make you a host.
Okay.
Go ahead, Karen. I'll
So
make
maybe-
you host.
Let's cross our fingers. All right. Can everybody see the slide number 1?
You're good to go.
All right, thank you. So thank you for having me tonight. This is probably one of the strangest Zoom meetings I've had. But my name is Karen Green. I know I haven't met all of you folks on the Finance Committee, so nice to meet you. I'm the director of the Department of Community Development. I'll just read you the mission statement, which you can read, but we're a bit of an umbrella department. Our mission is to encourage and guide short and long-term community development initiatives and private investment that is sustainable and consistent with community character and which promotes Yarmouth as a desirable place to live, work, and visit. You know what? I don't think I can tab through. This is a disaster.
You should be able to either do it from,
Should, but let me try again.
Karen, if it doesn't work, I think we all had received the presentation.
Do you
so
have it? I want to make sure it works too for CPA
Yeah, right.
later.
they have that as well, Karen.
Right, okay, so
Can I just double check with all our community, our members? Everyone have a copy of the presentation?
Yes.
I'll take that as a yes.
is my screen
Yes.
sharing right now?
No, Karen.
Oh, God. Okay, so how would you like to proceed then?
But let's just, I've got it pulled up on my screen. I'm assuming everyone else has on theirs.
Okay,
And we'll just, just kind of
all righty.
guide us as to where we should be looking on your slides. We
All
can.
right. Department of Community Development, for those of you who don't know, we're comprised of a number of divisions and programs. We work with an awful lot of committees, in addition to just staff projects. We oversee the Community Preservation Program, the Conservation Division, Economic Development Programming, Affordable Housing, and a Community Development Block Grant program. I'll go back into that. The Historic Programming, Old Kings Highway Regional Historic District, Planning Board, and Zoning Board of Appeals. We have 8 full-time bodies and 1 part-time. Our workload is, for the most part, it's regulatory. So we have a lot of commissions and review boards, and regulatory work does take priority because we're largely driven by legislated deadlines. We have 12 committees. Most meet 2 or more times a month. And open meeting law drives a lot of our workload in addition to the different regulatory deadlines. I just want to kind of give kudos to my staff because we really rolled this past year with the pandemic hitting. And our application process is largely not part of, the online permitting like you see in the building department, but we adapted really well and switched to online applications. Everybody was set up for remote work. We accepted and dealt with applicants either over the phone or through email, a lot of Zoom meetings. And through our conservation division, primarily Kelly Grant really led the charge in us adapting to remote meetings. And the ComDev regulatory boards really didn't skip a beat. I saw a lot of towns that were slow to the uptake, and we were at it right from the get-go. That said, Conservation Commission had something like 66 hearings over 23 open meetings this year. That's quite a workload. They have a lot of just different conservation programming that they do. Kelly Grant oversees invasive species management, some vista pruning, making sure views are protected. We work with the Chamber of Commerce on cleanup day. We've done prune the park type initiatives and collaborate on a variety of town projects. Economic development, we work with our Community and Economic Development Committee. They oversee the Tourism Revenue Preservation Fund, which is a special fund that was created through Home Rule petition. That fund is intended to kind of promote and preserve our tourism industry. The source of funding for that is hotel, motel tax and meals tax. We have a housing slash CDBG coordinator who oversees our affordable housing initiatives. She works with an affordable housing trust, as well as the community housing committee. Additionally, we oversee the community development block grant. That's a formula grant that comes from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And we oversee programming that is largely targeted at low and moderate income folks. This year with the pandemic, we were fortunate in receiving special COVID funds. It's called CDBG-CV. And with that additional funding, we're expanding programming, working with the Board of Health, working with senior services, working with the food pantry, trying to set up some programming to help folks who might be in trouble with rent arrears or mortgage arrears, those types of programming. So we're just in the midst of rolling out some new programming. There's a press release that has gone out, and I'd be happy to provide more information to anybody interested. Historic Commission oversees different historic programming in town. They look at the historic structures in town. We are fortunate to have the Baker Windmill, the Baxter Gristmill on the western side of town, and the Taylor Bray Farm up on the north side. They have really kind of hit their stride this year. They're getting much more active, looking at additional programming in the areas of archaeology and Native American interests. They are just recently, this past year, they completed work on the Indian Memorial over on Long Pond Drive. I think, is it Long Pond Drive, or it's on Indian Memorial Drive? And really trying to beef up educational efforts. They do indeed have a bit of a regulatory function. They oversee demolition requests of historic structures. That's buildings that are more than 75 years or more that are not part of the Old Kings Highway. Old Kings Highway District is another regulatory board we work with. Old Kings Highway applies to anything north of the Mid-Cape Highway. this past year. Again, very, very busy despite the pandemic. I think, personally, I think folks are staying home and they're focusing on their houses and making improvements. And that in part is due to a lot of the application processing that we see. We have the planning division. Planning division works on a number of town projects. Most notable this year, some of you may have heard about it and or participated in it, is our visioning process. And I have Kathy Williams on the call if folks have any questions about that. Kathy works with our planning board, who again meet regularly about twice a month, if not more frequently. And Kathy also works with design review. The last regulatory committee that we have on our slate of committees is the Zoning Board of Appeals. And they meet twice monthly as well. Recap of key points, highlights of the last year. I talked a little bit about our COVID adaptation. We really were able to switch to all remote work when needed. We had some folks who are in the building full-time or part-time. We've been able to be sensitive to health concerns that individual employees may have. And we've done okay. I want to thank my staff. I'd also like to thank all the committees who have put up with all of these Zoom meetings. I think they're great in a lot of ways, but they do make communication difficult in other ways. Visioning kickoff, that's a big highlight of the year. I put a link in to the survey that's in place there. The visioning project, and I don't know if it's okay, Mr. Chairman, if I can ask Kathy to chime in, just to
Yeah,
give
that would be
the
fine.
board a little brief and me a breather.
Great, let's do it.
Kathy, you there?
It's just not our night.
It's not, it's really not.
She is there and she's live. She's not in the waiting room. She's with us.
Oh, I can see her name. I don't see a microphone, so I'm not sure she's able to chime in. So I'll see if I can get a hold of Kathy and ask her to chime in.
Okay.
Other ongoing projects, the drive-in site is a big one. Most folks know we have been working on long-term efforts associated with the drive-in to build a Riverwalk Park and Boardwalk loop. That's the long-term function, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that in CPA. CPA has been generous providing some funding, but we have been successful this past year in securing additional funds through non-town sources. We have secured $1 million in a Seaport grant from the Massachusetts state government. And we've also received $956,000, or I want to say secured, because we haven't spent that money yet, in a land water conservation fund grant. That's money that comes to the state from the National Park Service. So long-term, we're working on that, the park project, but short-term, this summer, we did spend quite a bit of time working on the interim use at the drive-in site, together with the drive-in site utilization committee. But you may be aware of the drive-in sites movie theater that was in place that had morphed into some concerts. We've been taking a good look at that and continue working on that project. We are also working with Bridgewater State University on future plans for the Lawrence C. MacArthur School. That item will be in front of the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday. And the other item that I would mention is land disposition. We've been working on individual requests for folks to buy property that is currently owned by the town. We have a few requests that we're working through. We're working with a newly established committee that didn't make the original list of committees called the Land Disposition Committee. So I'd say stay tuned. I think that this current year will be a big year. All right, so that's the background. The budget overview, we are largely the same as last year. The only increases that you see are due to contractual changes. Our expense line has stayed the same. I don't know if anybody has questions there, if I should keep going. I think that you have in your budget packet, you'll see also that the wage line here is net of some offset funds from the Community Preservation Act program, as well as the Tourism Fund. And I think that's all in your detailed personnel sheet, wage, I can never get the name straight, personnel wage detail or something like that. That's the budget. Budget is challenges facing the committee, and one of these challenges has recently been met. So I mentioned we have a part-time staffing position in our budget, and that's for an office administrator to assist in the conservation division. That position's been vacant for almost a year, and we've just recently received approval to move forward with filling that position. So that's very good news, because that will help free up the conservation administrator from some of the day-to-day projects and move to more work on long-term projects, things like the invasive species management that I mentioned, and other projects that have been somewhat stalled, such as the Yankee Village Park development on Route 28. Other challenges that we face, and these challenges, I just don't think they're gonna ever go away. They're the challenges we face in municipal government, and it's just competing priorities and interests. And I mentioned how many committee we work with, committee members, committees with different goals, community members with different goals. And we really do strive to do our best with long-range planning to, my goal is always to shoot to make the most people better off. Kind of, I think we're in this to create public good. And that means we have to balance those, competing priorities and interests. One of the other challenges that we face on a regular basis is, people wonder why some of the projects don't move as fast as they should. And I don't ever disagree. I wish everything moved a whole lot faster than it does. But it's just maintaining support for those long-term projects, things like the Riverwalk Park that take years and years and more years to, to plan, get support from the very varied group of people that live in town, and then to secure funding and go through permitting and things like that. It's a challenge. It's an understandable challenge, but kind of understanding how these projects do take a lot of time and all the different components, we hope that we can generate more support for these types of projects. You can go ahead and scroll. I'm getting parched. Recommendations to consider for addressing future challenges. And I think that Kathy's been unmuted, so this might be a great time to have her chime in on the visioning process. I think that in order to understand best what projects are our priorities, it's important to understand what those priorities are. So I was hoping, and I think Kathy can do a better job explaining it, that the visioning process to help, I see the visioning process as useful in getting input from as a wide variety of people as we can, and helping us to understand, and us, I mean townwide, what are the subject areas that we support, maybe in very broad swaths, but at least to some extent. Kathy, can you chime in?
Yes, and everybody can finally hear me.
Yay.
I'm afraid I'm used to hosting meetings, not calling into them, so I'm getting a little used to that different view. I think Karen explained it actually very, very well. The only thing I kind of like to highlight is I think some of you did participate in our virtual workshops that we had, visioning workshops. Trying to do a public outreach program during COVID has been very challenging. And I think we've been trying to do a really good job to get the word out as much as possible, not just for the workshops, but also for the survey. As Karen mentioned, we're trying to get some kind of broad overarching goals and objectives from our community. Kind of what do you see as the best version of Yarmouth, and taking that information and kind of developing a vision statement, which will ultimately turn into a vision plan, which will give us some goals and general objectives that we can help, will help the Board of Selectmen with their annual goals, and it'll also be a kicking off point for proceeding further with the local comprehensive plan, which is basically our master plan, which will have the much more specifics of an actual implementation plan, which will get into specific projects and strategies and timelines. So I don't want to go on too much, but that's just a real brief overview.
The other recommendation, thank you, Kathy. The other recommendation that I'd have to address future challenges is I do really think that a lot of this COVID adaptation that we've had over this last year has really been great. And I think that kind of continuing along those lines, and for the Community Development Department, further refining our ability to do electronic permitting, take applications in electronically, and process things that way, will be a benefit to everybody. Related, I do think, and I think I brought this up last year, just in terms of use of our social media, use of the website, and any other platforms that we have, I think that we need to keep working on how we go about sharing information and making folks really aware of what's going on at the town level. What are the different projects that are going on, and what are folks up to? I think that's a benefit. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Karen. Does anybody have any questions? I'll open that up to the committee. Okay. Karen, so
All right, I do have questions. I was just giving other groups an opportunity to speak up.
had a sneaky suspicion that you might have a couple.
Oh,
You know,
I'm trying to be mindful and let others go first. So I had a couple of questions. So I was glad to hear you mention the online applications and sort of that moving in a post-COVID world, hopefully being able to retain that rate. I did notice just minor thing, but I noticed like your mileage, printing dues, etc., is the same as FY20. When FY19 it was I'm sorry, FY21, when in FY19 or FY20 it was a lot lower. Just curious, with COVID, you're not driving all over the place and printing a lot, I would imagine. If they're just looking for just a little bit of an explanation on that.
No, and I think, Stephanie, I don't have my actuals handy, but I'm sure our actual spending in that category is next to nil. It's probably just Mileage, we don't use mileage very frequently anymore. We have access to one of the town's electronic vehicles. So that budget line really is attending seminars and things like that. So I know one and we don't honestly do as good a job as we should attending those things. It's honestly hard to get away. Conservation Division does a great job, and we fund attendance for some of the conservation commissioners as well. The Mass Association of Conservation Commissioners runs some very good programming.
Okay. Yeah, I would be curious to see those actuals. And then the other thing is just a point of curiosity for me as a new member. You know, I saw your definition of your mission statement and references to promoting tourism and, you know, promoting economic development, you know, through community character. How do you define community character? Because, you know, on 6A, it's one thing, on Route 28, it's something totally different.
Yeah, I think that community, it's a really good question. You know, and I think that honestly, it's not one thing. It like you said, it's different on Route 6A versus on Route 28. It's different down by Bass River than it is in West Yarmouth. I think that community character is subjective. Almost like if we look at that mission and we look at the development, community development initiatives and private investment, it's easy to define.
Let me rephrase the question.
No. It's a tough question, Stephanie. It's a very good question.
Let me rephrase it because it is a tough question. So I see the focus around promoting tourism, and I'm just in my mind when I think, you know, kind of keeping within community character. If the community character has been, by and large, promoting tourism, right, and tourism, you know, has its ups and downs and doesn't necessarily provide the types of jobs that are going to sustain the cost of living here. I just don't know where new types of industry fits into that kind of mission statement and, you know, other heading of economic development.
Yeah, and I'd actually, I think I would disagree with you that it's wholly tourism focused, because the last part is Yarmouth as a desirable place to live, work, and visit. And I think that desirable would include, you know, economically advantageous. You want to have housing and jobs and things like that are available to folks. I wish I had a better answer for you on the community character item. It's
Karen?
Yeah. My planner?
This is Kathy? Yes. The only thing I was thinking of, well, the first thing that came to my mind with regard to community character is Yarmouth Commons. I mean, that is an affordable housing project that provides affordable housing to our workforces, but it was also done in a very architecturally and very thoughtful design, so that when you're driving down Route 20, I think people do have a tendency to look, go, whoa, what's that? Because it looks so nice and it fits in a little bit nicer with the community character. But again, that wouldn't be something that would be appropriate on Route 6A. So it really varies depending on where you are. But it's also, community character, also the flavor and the essence and the sense of place that we have here in Yarmouth, which might be things like our historical areas, our conservation areas. So there's a lot of things that go into making a community character. But I think here, my first thought was the physical community character along Route 28.
Thank you, Kathy. And for once, I'm actually not referring to housing. I'm actually just thinking in the space of economic development. And I think just by way of background, I'm saying this because I think members of this committee have expressed, since I've joined it, you know, a desire to see you know, our business tax base grow so that we're not, you know, having to tax from the same well of residents over and over again with tight incomes. So in order to do that, we know we need wastewater, right? Like that's absolutely, we need to have wastewater. But I'm just curious what else the town is doing by way of attracting and working to promote other types of economic development outside of the space of tourism. I think it's great to continue to do what we've long done in terms of promoting tourism, but there's only so far that that baby can grow, right? And so at a certain point, you kind of have to shift focus. I'm curious what else the town is focusing on right now in the space of economic development that would potentially help us grow our business tax base.
One thing that comes to mind are some recent efforts, largely driven by Dan, who's on the call, around broadband and trying to secure funding from outside sources and expand our capacity to provide broadband to town buildings as well as, you know, private businesses. So that's another area that we are focused on, expanding that. I think that some of our direct outreach efforts for business growth could be improved. I think that we have relied on kind of secondary type investment. And that is, you know, just making the town look nice. The tourism fund helps promote things that make the quality of life for residents better. And having a nice place to live can draw employees to live somewhere and hopefully encourage businesses to locate their businesses there. If that helps answer your question.
Yeah, I would, you know, we can leave it here, but I would just love to see not just Yarmouth, but, you know, all kind of Cape Towns you know, coming together on what are some other things we can be doing to support
Yeah.
the development of entrepreneurship, attracting other types of businesses outside of the tourism space. I'm not saying give it up. I'm just saying diversify our portfolio, you know, and be thinking about, you know, especially in times of COVID, you know, businesses need to, you know, some businesses have had to shift their focus and need support in being able to do that. We have, you know, a great resource in E4All, Entrepreneurship for All here on the Cape. So, you know, doing something to maybe to partner with them, just other things that are, I'd love to see us be a little bit more proactive in that space because I just, I think there are some things that there are some types of businesses that we can grow here in Yarmouth that don't require necessarily the huge infrastructure investment. And, you know, everything that we can do while we're concurrently working on that path of infrastructure is going to be really critical to help us meet the ever growing demands of our budget that just, you know, are going to continue to grow.
Nope, sure. I think those are great points. I'd love to hear more of your thoughts, Stephanie, on that topic.
Well, maybe we can get together over Zoom another time.
Yeah, oh boy.
As fun as that is.
It can be.
Stephanie, do you have any other questions? Any other committee members have questions? Hearing none. Karen, did you want to introduce the next committee that's going to present? I know you brought some of your folks with you.
Yeah, sure. I have Gary Ellis is here. He's actually in the next, he's on the other side of my wall. Gary is chairman of the Community Preservation Committee. And also here, in addition to Kathy, is Dawn Marie Flett. Dawn Marie's the administrative assistant for this department. And she is the also the CPA program coordinator. So she works with them. So I don't know, Gary, are you good to go? Pat's got the PowerPoint up. You are muted though, Gary.
Okay, I'm not muted now, right?
You're good, Gary.
Good
All right,
job.
thanks. Thank you all for listening to us tonight. And before, I'll let Karen go through everything because she did the presentation tonight. I can answer any questions. We had a meeting today, but most of all, I want to thank Karen and Don Marie, who with all we're going through, and we spend a lot of time trying to vet all our projects. And we are continuing to do so before we get to town meeting. But they've been great in working. There's no way I would do this without either or both of them. I mean, they're great for this town. I totally agree with, I'm a former conservation person. That's how I got on here. I know Kelly needs some help down there. That's a lot of work to do there. So I'm totally on board with trying to get as much help as we can, because it kind of pulls away from what we try to accomplish as a committee, because Karen and Don only have so many resources. So I'm totally in favor of bringing on somebody to help Kelly. So with that, I think I'll go back to Karen and let you go through our presentation of the projects that we're currently bringing to town meeting for the warrant and some that we are still working on.
Okay. So just in case folks don't know, we have a 9-person community preservation committee, and it's really a representative committee. There's folks that are on CPC by way of being on another committee. So we have Gary is an at-large member. He's not a good example. Christine.
Well, Karen, I started from conservation.
Okay, yeah, he started. He's an at-large member now, though. But we have representatives from the Open Space Committee, the Recreation Commission, Planning Board, Conservation Commission, not Gary, Paul Huggins, the Historical Commission, the Housing Committee, and the Housing Authority. So it's nice because we take in applications from, all over the place, but we have folks with very different points of view able to weigh the pros and cons of those applications as they come in. For those of you who aren't familiar with CPA is Community Preservation Act. The town adopted the CPA legislation back in 2005. CPA is funded through a 3% local property tax surcharge. Now, this past year at the fall town meeting, the town voted to adopt a $100,000 exemption to the CPA tax. The exemption applies to commercial and residential properties, and the intent of that exemption is to offset the simultaneous adoption of the wastewater investment infrastructure. I could have them backwards. Fund. It's the WIF. So that those two adoptions, town meeting voted for them at the fall town meeting. They will be on the spring town meeting ballot, which I think right now is in May. CPA funds are matched annually by the state. We're able to secure, and because we have the 3% surcharge, we're able to secure the maximum match that the state will provide. That match comes through surcharges at the Registry of Deeds. CPA funds are allowed to be spent on 4 categories of spending. Is affordable housing. The others are historic preservation, open space, and recreation. Thanks for that. So annually, the CPC announces the availability of funds, and they take in application from any number of sources. This year, they took in 16 applications, which tallied $4.3 million worth of funds. So far, and even some of this changed today, but 10 applications have been approved for a total of $2.6 million. 5 applications are pending. And that's for a total right now of $1.5 million. What I'd note is that excludes the value of a proposed land acquisition that will stay private until kind of any deal is officially brokered. And the committee has postponed one application. That one postponed application was a request for $214,700 from the South Yarmouth Methodist Church. And the committee just didn't think it was really ready to proceed. They have some more work to do in refining exactly what work they're going to propose. Pat, you can advance, please. Thank you.
If you don't mind, just at this point, Karen, I just want to interject. You know,
Please.
we went through a lot of work to. It was proposed that CPA be reduced from 3% to 2%, which would have gotten rid of the state match, which it was presented at one time that the state match was going down. I think, Karen, both you and I, the state match has gone up dramatically.
Yes.
And by going with the exemption, we preserve that. So I think our whole point on this was to try and keep as much matching funds as possible available to the taxpayers of Yarmouth. And we were able to do that with the exemption versus the 1% reduction. So not only did the state match go up, but, you know, everything's based on the registry fees, as Karen said, and we still don't have the final answers on that, but the registry, as I'm sure all of you are aware, has had a banner year. So those funds have also gone up. Okay,
Funding
Karen.
that, yeah, so going into the year with no new receipts, what you have in front of you are the reserve fund balances. So these reserves are fixed. While I noted that there are 4 categories of allowable spending, including recreation, there are 3 dedicated reserves, which are required by legislation to have no less than 10% of receipts added every year. But before we even add any money, the FY21 reserve balances tally just over $5 million. So what I've tried to do with this presentation is that's kind of the base going forward. I wanted to try to explain to you just the different articles. This is just how I organize the information, the different articles that will come to town meeting. So that's great, Pat. So on top of that $5 million, we have 2 receipts that need to be returned to the appropriate, we use the de facto term buckets for these reserves. This past year, we received $400,000 in a park grant from state to offset costs of the Yankee Village acquisition. That needs to be returned to the open space reserve. It was the open space reserve that originally paid for that acquisition. The other return that we need to do is $11,000. We have a housing modification program that's been funded through CPA. It's operated by an organization called HETCH, which is used to be Harwich Ecumenical Council for the Homeless. I think homeless has turned into housing. We have a home loan program, and what happened here is somebody ended up selling their house that was improved using the CPA funds. We have a mortgage system in place where that mortgage needs to be repaid back to the town.
And if you don't mind, also, I think it's important that you all note, and Karen, you can address this too, because it's because of you and Kathy, that the net cost to the town for the Yankee Village purchase is, because of we got that park grant, what was the net cost?
I think $550,000.
So when we talk about water infrastructure and the sewer and all that project, if he actually looked at that motel, was basically in the watershed. It was in the river. So not only is that going to contribute to, you know, the safety of our waterways, but it's going to create a combination of the two parks into one park. So we, you know, all three properties will now be one park, which is welcome to the town of Yarmouth for a net cost of $500,000 and helps contribute to our waters. So I just want to commend everybody, not only in the town, Karen and Kathy, for pursuing this, Christine, who was on open space at the time, to do that, to gain that back and not have anything go there. It is such a, I think it's great for what we did for our cost. And I have to point that out because there were a lot of people involved in this, and it's going to be a great project when we finish it.
Thanks, Gary.
Yep. Thanks, Karen.
So that the next slide in front of you with the yellow on it highlighted is, you know, we call it, well, whatever, housekeeping article. This is where we take the receipts that are due to the town and have been raised by the town, and we make the allocations into the three buckets. So I've highlighted the column with the exemption is because we have been budgeting on the assumption that the $100,000 exemption will be adopted at the ballot. Difference is about $500,000 off the top. Matching funds, Gary's right, and I do want to note in FY20, the state kind of doubled, I think, the extra fees at the registry of deeds. So we did see a big increase, relatively speaking, in our matching funds. Historically, we've budgeted, I think, 10% for a match. This year we went up to about 20. So then you see the total revenue, and 10% of that total revenue is allocated into the individual buckets. We also budget the maximum 5% allowable for administration. The balance, which in this case is about $1.1 million, that will go into the undesignated reserve. And anything, funds in the undesignated reserve can be used to fund any CPA project from the 4 different categories. All righty, so town meeting, the way in the past that we've organized the articles for the town meeting warrant is by category of spending. And so just the first category here in front of you are the affordable housing articles. We have 4 different projects that are proposed. And so maybe Mr. Chairman, it may make sense if I just run through these, and if anyone has a question.
Yeah, I think that's the best way, the same way we do it at town meeting.
So the first item on the list is pretty innovative because the CPC has received a request from Cape and Islands veterans for a housing project, which is actually located in Dennis. And they have fully funded that request. Second item is a request from our Affordable Housing Trust. We have a very active trust that has been successful in developing different housing products. They had been successful in leveraging CPA funds for the motel redevelopment that was used to offset some of the costs of development for the Cavalier, which is Yarmouth Commons. Kathy referenced that earlier. We have a second project coming online at the former, oh boy.
Yarmouth Gardens.
Thank you. This request is $200,000. the trust will deliberate and identify appropriate spending. We do have one staff person who's, I think 80% of their time is offset by the costs of the Affordable Housing Trust. Buy down program, the Affordable Housing Trust put this request in, and they will use this funding to solicit housing providers through a request for proposal process to conduct a buy down program. Now, what's a buy down program? A buy down program is where you buy market rate housing, you add a subsidy. In exchange for the subsidy, the housing unit has a deed rider attached to it, which will preserve the affordability of that housing unit in perpetuity. I think that there are at least, it's kind of an expensive program. I think there's 3 or 4 units of housing that will be developed in this way. The last item is $34,000 for eviction prevention and rental assistance. This is done through an organization called Hands of Hope. We have a very good track record with this organization who works to keep people in their homes by providing first, last, and security or overdue utility bills.
So I think what we should do, Karen, is as we go through the buckets, if there's any questions about our housing articles, it'd be best to do it now. If not, we can move on to the next. Same way we do it at town meeting.
I think that's a good idea. That way we don't get bogged down at the end. So
Right.
let's open it up for questions.
With the Veterans Home in Dennis, what other towns are contributing to that?
I think they're on here, but
Yep, I can answer that, Gary. There's $200,000 from the Dennis CPC plus Dennis is contributing.
plus the land. Yep.
$90,000 from the town of Barnstable Affordable Housing Trust and $15,000 from Wellfleet.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
And also, I believe in the future, they plan on doing some other projects. They're looking for land, going to be looking at other towns to continue with this program. We're still in negotiation with them as far as what we want to pick some particular projects that we feel we can fund for that. So we've left it that way at 100,000. We're still in negotiation with them as to particular items that we would be funding from Yarmouth.
Is there a reason why our share of that is higher than other towns? I mean, specifically Barnstable. Why would we be paying more into that than someone else? Again, especially a town that's significantly larger.
Yeah, I mean,
Much larger
we're
budget.
closer. So do you pick, I believe, Karen, and we could be right, it was up to 100, right?
I mean, and I think that's a important point. I think that speaking for the committee, I think that they are very responsible with the funding, and each and every one of these items is an up to amount.
Yeah, and we've
There's
gone
no
back and forth
guarantee.
with them saying, you tell us specifically what items you want funding for, and then we'll either approve them or not. So we're not done with this yet. It might not be 100, but we said up to 100. And Barnstable's 90. I mean, where do you draw the line? We could be here all night going, well, then do we do 70? I don't know, but we're still in negotiation with that. And we're working with Adam. They're a great group of people. I think it's a great project. We did it with the autism housing that they did in Dennis, got done right away. I don't know if any of you have seen it. We helped fund that. And it's a great project. Dennis has given them the land, but veterans from Yarmouth are eligible to be in there. So where do you draw the line? I don't know. But I think we spend a lot of time trying to vet it to the right amount that we should contribute. So if Barnstable's doing 90, I think we're in the ballpark there.
And do all other towns who didn't contribute, do they have the ability for their residents to live there? Or is it just specifically for the towns that help fund it?
I believe it's for all of them.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Gary, how are they picked? How
Excuse
are
me?
the 5 veterans picked?
How do they pick it? I know we asked them that, Karen. It's eligibility and how they qualify as far as income, and they vet them just like the, the Howard people do. And we don't really, part of the problem we get into, we try and do this, but if we try to do this through the town, the cost would exceed what we were giving them. We don't have the staff to vet every person. We kind of leave it up to them. And we've had a good track record with that.
I don't know the answer exactly to that question. I don't know if Don Marie, you might,
We'd ask them that, so.
but I'm happy to follow up and provide that to the committee, by email if that's help too. But Don Marie, do you have to know?
I don't. I think it's done at a service level based on the needs of the people who are kind of under their care. But I do see that Adam is here. I don't know if he's allowed to comment on
If Adam was
that
here, he could
question.
answer that.
He is here. If
He's got his hand raised. It's Adam, Cape and Islands, I think.
Yeah,
Yes.
Adam
Can you
answer
hear me
that.
now?
Yes, Adam, go ahead.
Hi, it'll be very brief, but yes, as a health and human services organization, there is your traditional intake process and case management process where a client is vetted, goes through a query, other different types of screening processes. A individual treatment plan is created and implemented. So every client that comes through, because this is a transitional supportive housing program, is vetted fully and completely, especially given the residential nature of this property. We ensure that all veterans they're honorably discharged. They can pass a query. But yes, we have a detailed protocol with regard to vetting and intake.
So Brian, I don't want to get too far off base, but I do want to tell you, on the state level, they encourage what we call regional projects. And we have a track record in the past with Dennis as having done that. We did it with the Chapin Beach Conservation Restriction. We did it with the tennis courts at DY High School. We're working on that with the Cape Playhouse. We're trying to work on that with the Cultural Center. So to try and get more funds and more matching funds to let these projects go forward without having it be a matter of town boundaries. So we actually have a Zoom meeting set up as a workshop with Dennis CPA, I think February 3rd we talked about, right, Don Murray? So we're going to try and discuss this and try and get more towns involved, because more and more of these regional projects come up, and it means less funding requested from Yarmouth, but Dennis, Brewster, Howard, we're working hard to try and get this to work so that more projects like this can go forward.
Yes,
So
and to that point, last week we received conditional approval from Brewster for a $50,000 request.
Oh, that's great.
And Harwich is $25,000. That's still in review, but the Brewster request was vetted through their legal team and has been put forward to recommendation for a Springtown meeting.
Great, congratulations.
Thanks, Adam.
Any further questions regarding the affordable housing? All right, moving on.
All righty. So there's 7 historic preservation articles. The words approved are a bit misleading. They haven't all been approved yet. That's my typo. The application total here is $917,000. It includes some town projects and it includes some private projects. We have, for the town, we have phase 1 repairs at the Baxter Gristmill. This is some structural repairs that will help to make the building safe and publicly accessible. The Taylor Bray Farm barn rehabilitation is somewhat similar. It's structural repairs and related aesthetic fixes at the Taylor Bray Farm barn. Farm barn for $300,000. Town records management and preservation is a request to preserve town records through indexing and scanning. That one's spearheaded by our clerks division. And I should note that the Gristmill and Taylor Bray Farm are kind of a cooperative deal between this department and our work with the Historic Commission and DPW. Cemetery signage is a project to install signs at the Pine Grove and Georgetown cemeteries. You may have seen signs that were previously funded through CPA at Woodside and Ancient Cemeteries. They are really very lovely signs, and I think they will look great, and it's nice nice to have all the signs be consistent. That request is $10,000. We have a request from the Cultural Center of Cape Cod for $102,000. And I know that, so that has a TBD next to it, as do the Gristmill and Taylor Bray Farm barn. The Cultural Center, I know that the CPC has eliminated almost $10,000 of potential funding on around, I think it was painting. Gary or Don Marie can.
Yeah, painting was definitely out because we considered it maintenance.
Yeah, this Cultural Center of Cape Cod application too, going back to the civic veterans housing request, CPC has really been good about entertaining proposals from other communities, and we're encouraging applicants from our community, from Yarmouth, to do the same. And so the Cultural Center of Cape Cod has indeed sought funding from the Dennis CPC, and I think they'll be discussing that with them next week. Cape Playhouse preservation. This is an article that was originally going to be, I think it was on the agenda for the Springtown meeting. It got bumped to the Fall Town meeting, and now it's bumped to the next annual town meeting. But this is another example of a crosstown project where a somewhat regional organization is seeking funds from different communities. The last item on the list is the South Yarmouth Methodist Church. I mentioned that one at the very beginning of the presentation, and that article has been postponed. Any questions on the historical?
I think it's also today, I agree, or I think I know we voted to approve up to 75,000 on the Baxter Mill. So that we did vote
That's
on
correct.
today. Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question for the committee on the historic preservation.
Go ahead.
So I do recall seeing something in the paper a while back about the, Cape Playhouse, along with so many other nonprofits and organizations in the Cape having challenges regarding COVID. Have you all, I guess, what's the latest in terms of their overall sort of fiscal health?
Well, actually, they've been proceeding. A lot of the work, and not the money that they're asking for from us, has already been done. So their fiscal health is pretty good, and they also have gotten recently another grant, which we encourage everybody to do. That's where how all this stuff gets done, is by getting matching grants. So basically, when we got back to the 65, we were kind of going on the percentage of the membership to the Cape Playhouse from Yarmouth as to what we might contribute. That's how.
I'm sorry, you're misunderstanding. I wasn't clear. Let me clarify. I mean their health as not in terms of the project. I mean their fiscal health in terms of being able to survive COVID. I would just hate to say something like this because it's awful to think, but I do think just we have to be thinking about these things. I would hate to have us, contribute funds towards something and then have have the property end up being sold because they couldn't make it through COVID.
And I do want to tell you, we're going through the same thing with the Cultural Center. Also, we've addressed that with them. So they don't have as much of their funds available to preserve the buildings, which we kind of feel that's our job, no matter who's in the building, that we preserve the exterior like we've done with the churches in town. Even if there was nobody in there, we need to preserve it. We did it with the Simpkin School. We preserved the building with nobody in there. Nobody anticipated on going in there. With the idea is if somebody took it over, the money would be reimbursed, and we preserved that building, after which the town was able to sell it. So no matter what happens with Cape Playhouse, it is under historic preservation. They really can't change the building, no matter who or what's in there. I know for a fact, financially, they're in good shape, but I can't address the numbers you might be asking for right now. I'm sure Karen could talk to them and they can let us know, because they've been doing quite well as far as fundraising, and we feel an obligation to help preserve the building for the use for all the towns that use it.
So in both of those cases, the buildings are under
Conservation restrictions.
restrictions that would prohibit them from being.
Yes. Yep. They couldn't change the building no matter who was in there.
Okay. All right.
I'm just, Stephanie, just to follow up on that, I'm fairly certain when we were going into the fall town meeting, we were having this conversation, and I believe Dennis CPC required them to.
Yes, they did.
Historic preservation restriction on the property. Normally with CPA, when you acquire something, acquire a piece of land, acquire housing, or in this, if you were to buy a historic property, you're required to put a restriction on it. When you're just doing improvements, my understanding is you don't, that preservation restriction isn't required, but in this case, Dennis did.
Well, not only Dennis, any state historic funding you get, it is required.
Mm-hmm.
And
then
they've already gotten that money.
Yeah, and I just wanted to call out their matching funds. They have $250,000 from the Dennis CPC. I know they were seeking $150,000 from the Mass Cultural Facilities Fund, and additional funds from private donors. And then there was, back in October, I know that they did get an award from the Cape Cod Foundation Endowment, though I think that's primarily for grounds maintenance of the property.
And just to clarify then, the Cultural Center is also under a similar historic preservation requirement?
I believe they already are, but Karen, you could look into that, because when we did the first phase of the project, we got a large grant from the state, and they got an award for a historic preservation project.
I will follow up with them. That property too has the additional, I don't know that the building itself is on the National Register, but it is, I believe, part of the River National Register Historic District.
Yeah, but I believe it also has a historic preservation for the building, not the Owl Club, but the main building does.
Okay. And then the town records management and preservation, is the expectation that the entirety of that project would be completed within one fiscal year?
I don't believe so. I think, Don Marie, I'd ask you to chime in. I think there's 3 phases to the project. that
Yes.
would go about a year and a half.
Exactly, and those are a couple of months to go through all of the boxes of documents in all the various locations around town. And then about a month or so to kind of build a database and produce the guidelines and set up the procedures. And then another year or so to get everything actually scanned in. So probably a year and a half to 2 years.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand how the finances of it would work. We'd appropriate 150,000 at town meeting, and then it would carry over to the next.
Yeah.
Yeah, what we normally do, Stephanie, is when we write the contract, we put it in the contract, they have 3 years, which is typical, we've done in the past, 3
Yeah.
years to use the funds. If they don't, they have to come back to us. Correct, Karen?
Yeah, that's correct, Gary. It's the CPA funds are special funds. So it's not the same as the general fund where it's really use or lose situation. So we have a little extra leverage.
Yeah,
Got it.
so with
Go
each
on
of them,
longer.
we go into a contract with them, which has a time limit.
Okay, and that's not something that can be broken up by those phases or anything, right?
Before, not only what it is now, sometimes to do a project like this, like the drive-in project, there's no way it's going to happen in a year. So that's why we try and make the contract to coincide with what their anticipation is. And if they don't do it within that, then we say you have to come back to us or you lose the funding. But it's
I
really
think-
almost impossible to do
Yeah.
half these projects within a year nowadays.
And I think with these projects, they're, I can speak, I can look around my office and see how much paper we actually have here. I think that kind of getting going is a good thing. And the only thing that you really could break up would be the actual scanning phase. And I think that it's probably cost advantageous to kind of ask for more. We're probably getting a more of an economy of scale in terms of what we're buying for service here.
And so how much of the documents ballpark are, the big boxes that are sitting in your office and other town offices that are, 10 or 20 years old versus, actually like historic old, birth records from the town clerk's office?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer off the top of my head. Gary or Don Marie, do you?
That's the main goal of phase one, which is going to take a couple months, is to catalog everything. Because we actually don't know that at the moment.
And make a determination what is historic. Technically,
Right.
going by state standards, 45, anything over 45 years, it's historic.
Stephanie, you all set?
All set.
So I have a follow-up question regarding the Cape Playhouse and kind of dovetailing into, for instance, the Cultural Center of Cape Cod. So I'm assuming other towns are going to contribute to this renovation, not just Dennis and Yarmouth. And then secondly, do we ask other towns to help with the Cultural Center of Cape Cod, for instance, or the Taylor Bray Farm Barn? Do we request or try to get money for that from other towns?
I think, Brian, it's a good, at least us in Yarmouth, we're trying to work towards that. But, to ask every town on the Cape to contribute to Taylor Bray Farm will probably take years. So what we're trying to do, and we're taking the initiative here in Yarmouth, is trying to get together with Dennis and then Brewster Howard. And I think it's a great thing to have regional projects. We could do so much more and do like Howard benefit from Taylor Bray Farm. Of course they do. But how much it's getting better. When CPA first started, you'd never get another town to contribute. We've done made a lot of progress since then, and we're going to continue to work towards that, because you could take $100,000 project, if you got every town on the Cape to contribute to it, it becomes minuscule, but they all benefit from it. So we're trying to come up with some type of guideline. Is if you're there, how many people you're a member of this association, and maybe we develop some guideline like that without having a strict law. We funded a lot of money to the cultural center in the past, totally by Yarmouth. This was the first time we started insisting you need to go to other towns also.
So you have done that for the cultural center.
We are one of the first to start doing that, which is what created the question with Dennis. They go, well, you've never been asked before. I go, well, we're going to be asking from now on. And then I'll go beyond Dennis Brewster Howard. It's going to take a while to develop this, but I think it'll benefit all of us. I'm not a big person on this town borderline stuff. You know, we can do a lot more. For instance, the tennis courts at the high school, they're used by a lot of people in Dennis, and they totally backed it. They contributed quite a bit towards that project.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. We just see it from on our end with these slides that I'd love to know, is someone in the Dennis Finance Committee going through a slide that says, in the Cultural Center of Cape Cod is asking $65,000, just like they're coming to us. I mean, I hardly think we need to help each other because there's a mutual use here, but I just want to make sure that that mutual agreement is, coming back to us at some form.
We'll probably know more than after we have our meeting with them, but that's what we're hopefully working towards.
Great, thank you.
And I just need to clarify on that, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
I am a huge believer in regionalization of services and the more bang for your buck. So I completely get the philosophy. Just to clarify though, what the chairman was asking about, in addition to the work that you're doing in bridge building with other communities, you are also, in addition to that, asking entities that come before you that have a shared regional use to, on their own, go to Dennis and other towns. Is that correct?
That's what I'm asking, yes.
Yes, that's what we're starting to do. We have not in the past. We are doing that now.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, can I raise a question?
Yes, you may.
Back to the town records expenditure. And this is just a question about the purpose of this. Is this really to store the stuff in a more compact way? Or will it have such capabilities as searchability that would make it available to, historians, for example?
Answer that, Gary. That is indeed the intent, George. It's really to increase the public access to the historic records.
Yeah, and we did it with the cobbler shop with the records that are down there, and they can address it when they come. But we did it there. They have their historic weatherized compartment in back, and they get a lot of people annually who are authors, people writing books about history of Cape Cod, who actually come in and research it in just what you're asking for. So as the history of Cape Cod develops, it is a great resource for preserving our history, for authors, people who have an interest in historical records. As you know, you can't go into an old book with 100 people and have them thumbing through it.
Great. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, let's move on to the next.
Great. So, if someone sneezed, God bless you. These are the FY22 open space articles, and there are 4 of these. One of them, again, is a land acquisition. I'll tell you a little bit about that towards the end. These requests tally $1.6 million. The lion's share of that amount is attributed to the first request. This is funding for the Riverwalk Park and Boardwalk Loop. This is supplemental construction. When this project first came around, the Drive-In Site Utilization Committee asked the town for $3.7 million, which is a really big portion of the existing and the anticipated receipts. So what we did was broke the request into two parts. The first request of $2.2 million was funded in 2019. This is the balance. It's $1.5 million. This is funding collectively for the design and permitting of the project, as well as 50% of the construction. And I noted the grant funds that we've received to date, or received commitment for to date. We still do have some to go, but this absolutely helps get the project going forward. It will help to get the project completed. And it provides a very important match to the different grant funding agents' requirements. Second item here is the Upper Bass River watershed restoration. This is a proposal from the Friends of Bass River. This is a request for $94,000, 616, to kind of really get that project, supplement ongoing efforts, and get the project to the next step. The next request is a smaller request. This is a culvert reconstruction on the property of the Historical Society of Old Yarmouth. The last request is a land acquisition. The town is, this part isn't a secret. I won't get too far into details. The town is interested in acquiring 10 acres approximately of land on Higgins Kroll Road. It's very close. It's within 1,000 feet of the well, which is closest there. We would want to acquire this property for wellhead protection. Right now, it's proposed to be 10 units of housing. And the town is actively negotiating on that property. Are there any questions?
Anybody have any questions here?
And if anyone has questions later, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to try to find the answers for you.
I am just curious about the project related to the Friends of Bass River. Are there any other projects like that that would have a shared benefit of helping to affect our wastewater challenge, as well as an open space CPC benefit that have come before you, or that we can encourage to come before you?
Yeah, I have to interject, and Karen knows, I have to, because a big part of what we've tried to do in the past years, I kind of feel, not only feel, I know nobody has done more to protect our waterways than CPA in Yarmouth. And I'm going to talk about, I want to go into details. We can start with Yankee Village. We can talk about the Parker's River project. This Bass River project is going to be part of it. Nothing's going to contribute more as a percentage of nitrogen reduction to our waterways than the projects we're trying to fund. So when you get back to the Bass River project, if you go on, you can check, and Rick Bishop was here. There were two projects on the Cape that have been done with great success. One in Falmouth, the other one, which was proposed, is going to be at Wellfleet as you go out to Great Island. And what it does is it flushes it. And there's no better way of reducing nitrogen in our waterways than by flushing the inland waterways. So I would encourage any of you who are really interested to talk with Rick and actually take a tour of the Crab Creek culvert. What's basically happened is we're getting more water coming down into Crab Creek because they increase the flow when they redid the railroad bridge that became the rail trail. So much more water comes in there, but it can't get through this culvert up into the creek. If we could flush this, and if Rick was here, he could tell you all about the growth they get inside of that pond, which is totally, if you go and see it, it's totally needs to have water coming into it. So is Rick still here?
Harry, I believe Rick's here.
I am here.
Okay. Rick, you can talk about this forever. So why don't,
Or
when you
is
go,
there information available online somewhere, Rick, that you can?
like, I'd like to have Rick talk to Stephanie about this because it's a good question. And it was our first questions too. So if you could briefly explain to Steph and the other members of the committee about this project, Rick, it would.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Gary. The Friends of Baxter River this year applied for a EPA grant to study the upper Baxter River watershed, taking the problems with the constriction at the North Dennis Road culvert and the Weir Road culvert, and study and plan for converting the historic cranberry bogs back to their natural wetland state. Because natural wetlands are great sinks for carbon and nitrogen. So it'd be a huge step to solving the water problems we have in Mill Pond and the lower and the Fallons Pond and the rest of Bass River. Right now, the NEP study showed that Mill Pond had to have a 71% reduction in nitrogen to get back to the acceptable loads there. So we applied for this grant and were awarded $257,000 for the first two phases, which we have underway right now. What we're asking the CPC group to do is fund the final third phase of the project. So we have a complete plan for the next steps to solving this problem. So we're very excited about it. It's been a tremendous project for us, tremendous project for the town. The town of Yarmouth's been great working with us on this. And once the planning and proposal is completed at the end of this year, we'll then begin researching funding mechanism to do the actual construction.
Sounds great. And I completely.
Stephanie, I would encourage you and all of your committee members, if you get a chance, I'm sure Rick would do it. It's a part of the town and there's so many wetlands involved here to actually take. I don't even think any of you would understand how much of our land and wetlands is constricted by this and how much it affects. So I'd encourage you to have Rick take you down there and take a look at this, because you'd be totally impressed if you saw what this project in the future would entail. It's something it's a resource we don't even know we have, and we need to preserve it.
Yeah, I support it.
Oh, I know. I just encourage you to take the tour. You'd be impressed.
I'd love to take Rick up on that if he's open at some point.
It's about an hour and a half.
Yeah, there's a lot.
No, I've worked on wastewater issues, so I'm very familiar with that. And just saying, I love this type of, project that has more than one benefit to it. Mm-hmm. And being that wastewater is one of the greatest challenges that we are facing in the town, I just, would say I encourage this type of thinking. And if there's, any other projects like this, I'd say it's a good use of CPC funds.
Well, I wish we could do more. We can't really, as you know, with CPA, we can't fund wastewater.
No,
but we can open space. And this project, in my opinion, encompasses three different categories. Not only preserving open space, which it does, but recreation for kayaking, fishing, and also, if you take the tour, the old historic cranberry bogs with the waterways, with the cranks that let the water in, it's all still there.
And in 1870, Hamlin's Brook, which is part of it, was the second largest herring catch in all of Massachusetts. Right now we have 0. We're going to fix that.
Wow, that's great. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Karen, why don't we go on to the recreation articles?
Okay. So we have one article proposed, or it's one application proposed right now, And this one of all the applications is up for discussion. And this request is for phase 1 construction at Sandy Pond Recreation Area. We have a master plan in place for Sandy Pond, and phase 1 is proposed to include a splash pad and at this point also a inclusive playground. I know that Gary might be able to speak to this, and I see that Jeff Colby's on the call as well. This item is a bit fluid. The Recreation Commission is still weighing in on it, and the Board of Selectmen will be discussing this on Tuesday, the 26th. A selectman had previously, I think for FY, the last set of selectmen goals had included a splash pad request. So
because we're still in negotiations with this, Karen, so I really don't have much to add at this point. You know, we got recreation meeting tonight. They're going to talk about this in the selectmen next week. So, you know, we spent a lot of time on this, and it's still in negotiation as far as whether we're going to even recommend it or not. I can't answer that yet. That's all I can say. But if Jeff's here, he can talk about it.
or answer questions.
Yeah, happy to answer any questions that the committee might have. Karen and Gary did a good job with an overview. And I did just meet with the Recreation Commission and answered most of the questions they had and gave them an update on the project.
Anybody have any questions for Jeff?
I do. When
Yeah.
you're saying that this is the item that's under the most up for discussion and is still in negotiations, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, the project scope is pretty well defined. We also do have an updated cost breakdown, which is what I went over with CPC as well as the Recreation Commission this evening. So that piece is well defined. There's also a site plan, a concept site plan that's been developed, and some good renderings and sketches of what an inclusive playground and a splash pad could look like, and especially since they're complementary to each other and located in approximately the same area adjacent to the restroom at Sandy Pond. So, you know, that piece is what's clear. What's still in negotiation or discussion is just whether this project addresses some of the concerns or reservations that have been expressed by the various committees. And like Karen said, the selectmen will be meeting on this on Tuesday to maybe further that discussion.
So, and just to try and review what we're looking for on CPA is we're trying to get a consensus of the opinions of everybody, including your own committee, about the value or warrants of this should it go forward. So we're looking for the selectmen, we're looking for recreation. We've already gotten input from conservation. We're looking for the input from finance committee. Anything you want to get back to us before we go forward that could be helpful. Like Jeff could probably tell you more because he met with recreation a lot, but there's a lot of people involved in this, and we're trying to get a consensus before we get to town meeting.
When you're talking about all these various components that's going into Sandy Pond, and this $1 million price tag attached here, what is being allocated to what? How much is going to this driveway, parking area, site improvements, splash pad, playground? What's going where?
Jeff?
We have that. That would be up to, I guess Jeff has it. He could share it with you.
Yeah, if you want me to get into that, I can probably share my screen. I left all my tabs open from the previous meeting with recreation.
Good luck.
And so if that's something I can get into now, I think it's giving me a message that I can't share. So I'm not sure if we can work through
Verbal
that.
is fine.
We've
Karen.
been having trouble with it all day.
I'm not the host of the meeting. Pat would, I had an awful lot of trouble trying to share my screen, Jeff.
Jeffrey, you can share your screen now, my friend. You can share your screen.
Go, Jeff, go.
Go.
It'll say, okay, it's giving me a message about stopping sharing screens from others.
Yeah, Pat, you need to close out this presentation and then, there we go.
Thank you. I know.
Jeff, you did it so quickly this afternoon.
I know I'm not living up to my
Oh,
Zoom
what were-
skills here.
Yeah, no Zoom Ninja now.
Yeah, I've got to open up a different tab. Here we go. How's that?
Nothing.
You gotta put it on the bottom, open on the bottom, and then put it in the share.
Well, I can talk through this.
Send it to me, Jeff.
The bottom line is the new cost estimate is 1.45 million.
Yeah.
And the components are 300,000 for a splash pad and 550,000 for the inclusive playground. And that is, and the other components relate to site preparation, contractor general conditions, engineering, since this is just at the concept stage and would need to have final plans and specifications developed, and a pretty robust contingency associated with that as well. So that's talking through it. It doesn't look like this is going to let me share my screen.
That's fine. You gave us the breakdown I was looking for. So when you say 1.4, well, there we go.
There it is.
All right, yeah.
When you say 1.4 though, again, just to clarify, you mean phase one only and there'd be more phases after this, or this? So this is not the whole project.
That's correct. This is just the very first phase of improvements there. This is, been a work in progress. There is a master plan, I think Karen mentioned previously, that was anticipated to be at least 3 phases. It might be more. The overall master plan has a price tag that's approaching $5 million. This is just one component of that plan. It's, as Karen mentioned, the splash pad piece is a selectman goal, and the inclusive playground is a recreation commission goal. That's their first priority. So we're trying to, blend the two, take advantage of some of the components that would be shared, like the site preparation and the contractor mobilization and the engineering. And so there's pieces that certainly could be shared and benefit from each other and be complementary. An example of this, detailed cost breakdown you see on your screen, if you were to remove one item, such as the splash pad, let's say at 300,000, it would reduce the overall price by that 300,000, but you wouldn't be able to take advantage of, some of that site preparation to get both projects done. They are in an area of Sandy Pond that won't be impacted by future phases. That's something I talked through with the Recreation Commission just before this meeting. So it's there's future phases that include things like expanding the multi-use field that's on the site, adding some and moving the basketball courts, adding some parking. Those are all aspects of the master plan that happen on other parts of the site. So don't get, so this can be simply broken off. There's also softball field on the site, as I'm sure you all are aware, as well as a dog park that doesn't get impacted by any of these aspects either. So there's pieces that are easily able to be pulled out and done as separate phases, and this is an example of one of those.
Hey, Jeff, while you're there, Jeff, could you hit that plus button on top, just above, and just makes it a little bigger so people can read the lines. So right up there. Yeah, that's great. There you go.
Thank you for walking me through that, Pat.
So I have a follow-up question.
Go.
So, okay, so the 300,000, so for the splash pad, It's interesting. I had always, whenever I read the Warren articles on this, I was always thinking of this mainly as the splash pad, but it really does sound like this is a much more comprehensive kind of update to our facilities there. And I do agree that, you know, we need better recreation facilities throughout the town. And that is something that is shared. You know, people go from town to town to use different recreational facilities. So is this something, Chairman Ellis, that has been brought up in terms of any other towns contributing to it, or any other sources of funding in terms of fundraising or anything like that?
Those are good questions, Stephanie. I'm not sure where Gary went. I don't believe that we've had conversation with other towns in terms of their chipping in, excuse me. Jeff, I don't know if we've talked recently. I don't recall about.
We haven't had those discussions as of yet.
Yeah.
I'm not really familiar with the process that CPC has started with communicating with others about reaching out to, you know, different towns. From my sense, from just hearing that discussion happen before this topic, it seemed like most of those things were outside entities and not specifically town properties or town recreational properties. But that doesn't mean we can't have those discussions. We haven't yet on this project.
Jeff, do you know if any other towns on the Cape have a splash pad? That's my first question. And secondly, has anybody done any studies as to what type of traffic this will, not necessarily traffic on the road, but just how many people are going to come? I mean, I've had 3 kids that have used splash pads in the past, and I know what a zoo they can become. If we're the only town that has that splash pad, they will come, you know, the old adage, if you build it. Have we thought about that? I mean, it's a relatively small parking area, a relatively quiet road, and there's neighborhoods around there. What kind of traffic do you think we'd see on something like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Those are the types of questions that the Recreation Commission has continued to ask. I've met with them several times about the project, answered a number of their email inquiries. And we do know, because we've reached out and talked with these communities, that both Bourne and Mashpee have splash pads, and they are popular. At least in the case of Mashpee, which I'm the most familiar with, they don't have it manned or staffed, so it is kind of an on-demand type of feature. They don't feel it has the use that they'd need to have someone there to, you know, kind of police that activity or deal with lines or anything like that. But it is popular. And those are the types of things we've been working with the Rec Commission on, just to try to get a handle on some of those things. They've got questions about water usage and recharge of the water and things like that that we've answered for them. You know, so those are the types of issues we're working through. Again, this is at a very high level. This is still conceptual. We don't have detailed plans. I do have some plans I could share you of what the concepts look like and what other communities have done. That's on one of my other tabs here as well, if you're interested in that level of detail. But those are the things I've gone over with the Recreation Commission. They still need to select, if this goes forward, they still need to select the actual features, what they would look like, and what the equipment would look like.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Are we all set here? Is that it? Great. I think, Karen, I think you have presented quite a bit tonight.
Unmute. Yeah, no, and if anybody, you know, thank you all for your time. I know it's a lot of subject matter. I appreciate the time. And if anybody has any questions, please send them my way. I'm happy to, if I don't know the answer, I'm happy to hunt it down.
Karen, I know you're pretty tired tonight, and thank you.
Thanks a lot, Gary.
Well, I know you are, but I know what a long day this has been for you. I just want to thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Gary.
To the Finance Committee, you can see the complicated and diversity of work that falls under Karen's purview. The regulatory alone would keep someone up at night, but the many committees and work that she does in keeping the balls in the air, she's done an excellent job. And I hope that not only with the budget, but also going forward, that we could find the support she needs to really do the job we all hope for and build the economy and be able to bring in those revenues that we all want outside of tourism to balance our budget and our town's revenues going forward. So thank you, Karen, for a great presentation tonight.
Thank
Yes.
you. We have great staff, great volunteers, and great coworkers for sure.
Well, thanks to everyone that participated in this meeting, aside from our committee. Well, thank you as well. But I think we're all set there. We're going to follow through with our final things that need to be done for finalizing this evening. So thank you very much. Dan, are you there, Dan?
Dan had to step away, but I'm here.
Do we have any new business?
Well, we had a few, a couple of transfers, but they weren't in time for tonight. So we'll bring them in at the next meeting next Wednesday.
Okay, great.
And again, to let the committee know that going forward on the 10th is a meeting with Cape Cod Tech. And on the 17th is our first meeting with DY High, DY Regional School. And hopefully it'll be a good beginning to kind of suss out the questions, the areas that maybe are flexible, and a reality check on what they anticipated to be a 3.5% to 4% increase for this year. But it's issued, but we're hoping that those will change once the inoculations have come forth.
Pat,
What do we have next week again?
Next week, I believe, is IT and
That's February 3rd. I think the 27th is.
oh, is inspectional services and the health department. So inspectional services is plumbing, all of those permitting and inspectional services run by Mark Grills, and then also under his purview is the health department. And Bruce has a huge presentation to you for many more than 6 slides, though I can't hold him back. But I said today, do what you need, but definitely will bring to you a number of issues that have impacted the health department and the town due to COVID.
Great.
Pat, again, could you just make sure that when those transfers become available, that we can get them ahead of time?
Absolutely. I actually have them now. It just wasn't enough. It wasn't on the agenda for you to address tonight. So I can send them as early as, I think I sent them out to you today in your invite for next week's meeting.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we have no new business to speak of. I'm looking for a motion. And
I move we adjourn.
I also would like to make a comment that it's very strange to see George not in his basement. That's all I'm saying.
I want you to know I'm in South Carolina by the beach.
Oh, geez, sure. Rub it in. Great.
And Sarah, but a moment ago you were but a cat, a cute little cat, and now you're live.
Oh, she is not little anymore. Every now and then she makes a guest appearance.
And can we also just take a moment to congratulate Sarah on starting her own law firm?
Oh, yeah. Very.
Oh, congratulations.
I'm set up right here in Yarmouth, so.
Really? Well, let's find out about that and make sure people know. Honestly, as much as it's not a conflict. May I also ask, as we go through this process now, there's been some changes to a few of the budgets. I know that the police budget has been augmented with the taser ask that was through capital. And I think there might be a couple of new asks. So I just want to make sure that we've kept good track of any changes. So when you look at the bigger picture, we have all of your books updated and make sure that we're set for going forward. I'll tell you, as a group, one of the things go ahead, sir.
No, you can go, Pat.
All right. One of the things I'm going to recommend to Mr. Lawton in his interim position and going forward is that we look at town meeting to be an outside meeting. And if that's the case, then April 24th is just going to be way too cold, sorry. And I have talked to the high school and they're interested in sharing some of the expenses for the June 10th graduation and a potential town meeting on either side of that, because they'll be set up for their graduation on that Saturday. And I feel that that might be plenty of time to be able to close the books and have that passage happen, and it'll be warmer for people to be outside. We really want to encourage as much participation as possible. So that's one of the things we're looking at now. There's a new report that came out today from the town accountant, Maria Rusfo. And I don't know if you get those reports, do you, and to see where the revenues are?
We do.
You do. All right. So you're all set with that. So you're kind of tracking where our incomes and revenues are going. And at this point, Ed and his team have done an excellent job of keeping us not only informed, but making sure everything is in the right pocket. So we're in a good place. So, but it's only January and we have a few months to go. So Ed, you're here. Is there anything you'd like to share with the committee at this point?
Thank you for your service to the town. We all appreciate it.
I do just have a question of procedurally, will we get a chance to hear from Ed and just talking about some of those numbers again, one more time with more updated figures before we actually go through and vote on our recommendations?
Wouldn't that be February 3rd?
Well, that's really his budget review, but not his overall review. But after the school department comes on the 17th, even though there'll be some adjustments, I think, Ed, maybe we want to schedule a meeting for you to share the most up-to-date numbers and what we're looking at in terms of budgets from maybe beginning of March before we go and certify anything in April. What do you think?
Yes, shortly after we get the numbers from both Cape Tech and from DY, because there's some significant shifting in students, which may, and we normally go in and say that the assessment's going to be 2.5%, and it may be significantly more than that, and we may be in a position to have to cut some expenses out of the budget, and we're already over allocated for the free cash if we try to fit in all of the capital requests, let alone anything else. So there is some trimming that has to be done. And we got some good news about the health insurance that either reduce the amount of short-term rentals we need to allocate to actually keep the budget in balance and allows that to go almost entirely to wastewater, or we might need to pull that back in again to accommodate the school spending, depending on what we want to do with reductions in appropriations elsewhere. So, you know, this is typical. This is an every year occurrence. This is part of the process that we go through to try to manage the budget on a yearly basis. We wait for the schools because that's the 100-pound or 1,000-pound gorilla in the room.
Wish it was 100-pound.
Yeah, I do. Yes, I was off by a factor of probably 10 or 20.
Yeah. I think also the school realizes that the ask that they put in initially is for the present level of staffing required based on the state Department of Education's rules about 6 feet and other COVID issues. And as they see those decline, they're hoping that their request will significantly be diminished by their need for staffing once those Department of Education rules are changed and our status changes.
And we have to understand that a 3.5% to 4% increase could mean 5 to 6% increases for Yarmouth versus, what it might mean to Dennis just because of the shifting of students. Now, with the 5-year agreement or agreement to actually have a 5-year average enrollment, that takes the sting out of a large shift in population. So that's very helpful in terms of what was negotiated in the last agreement. So we really are anxious to see what their numbers are so that we can understand what that impact will be, and then we have to put it in our, our calculations to see where we are versus the levy limit and what we need to do with other things. And then we have to look at, I think, when you receive the revenue trend, you saw that if we took out short-term rentals, we were in the low 80% of where we were last fiscal year pre-COVID. We built in a 30%, 33% decrease in local receipts this year. So, hopefully we don't go below that floor, and I don't think we will. But you talked about the online permitting systems. We're looking to upgrade our system. We've got building, we've got health, we've got licensing. We want to bring on community development into that system. Hopefully we can make sure that happens. So, we're looking at being COVID proof as it relates to a lot of those types of things. And we are from the consumer standpoint. So we hope to have those revenues flowing. Part of the presentation we'll have in finance is we all had to work in the building because with elections, you have to be at the election computer. You can't do that remotely. When the revenues come in the door, you got to process them. So, we were in the building pretty much full time throughout COVID.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you. I don't mean to be gloom and doom, but, it all depends. It's all rosy now, but, when the schools walk in the door, that's when we really know.
I don't think it's rosy. These people, many of them have been a part of it, but I think more importantly, the sooner we get them here to talk to us and we start being able to plan, the better the outcome can be as we progress. So I was really pleased that the superintendent agreed to coming to see us on the 17th. And also, Dan has done a great job, and I have to say I'm a fan of Dan. And I've been very pleased financially of where he's left us as he leaves at the end of the week, and the work he's done with Ed and others to keep us stable. But Mr. Lawton certainly knows our town and knows our budgets and knows what we're doing. And having Bob here to help guide us through this is going to be a true benefit than someone who is unknown to us and doesn't understand all the nuances. So Ed, I know you're pleased as I am.
And we've done this before. This is the second time around having an interim town administrator. That's Bob Lawton. So we know the drill. We know what to do.
Will he be joining us perhaps for a couple of these meetings or no? So that we can all get to know him?
I hope so. Brian, I haven't had a chance except to email and get responses, but I know this will be a priority committee for him, and as will town meeting and how we set that all up. So I'll mention that to him when I see him. Ed, have you had a chance to discuss that with him?
I didn't. I know the last time he didn't, and I took care of it just because he's working for us maybe 2 days a week. So he is going to be, pretty much inundated. So I don't want to commit, which things he may or may not take on. So, that's going to be, that's part of how we have to figure things out going forward. How we're going to divide up all the tasks. We did that the last time around. So I'm assuming that we'll do it again this time around and figure out who's going to do what to get the process going. One thing I want to add about a June town meeting is we also have to fit an election in somewhere. Before the end of the fiscal year, and that's important, very important for wastewater. So that has to fold into the timing.
Mary's aware, and I know that Mary, the new clerk, will, she's pushing me to get that first meeting set so that she can make other arrangements. So we're talking about that now. And I also know that Bob will at least come in and smile at you through Zoom once and talk to you a little bit. So I know he'll want to be connected. So
I think that's all I'm requesting is just for him to, at least just to, so that everyone can get that those that don't know him put a, face to a name.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I'm going to be working with or meeting with Bob on the budget, or actually I'm going to give him a package containing the budget and all the, the issues that may arise and some of those types of things. Again, as Pat said, he knows the drill. He's been through this, probably, 30 years worth of this. He knows the town. He's on boards and committees, several of them for the town. So, if you're going to have somebody come in at this point in time, he's the guy. He does, as you may know, he's the interim in a lot of different communities. He's helping out Harwich right now, and he's helping out the county. So, if you want a guy to step in, he's the guy.
Yeah, I'll share your concerns, Brian, and I'll make sure that we see him. And I'll keep sure, I continue to send him notes and issues that are discussed. So if there's anything that raises any concern with him, he'll be quick to reach out to you and the committee.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
We'll do a final roll call. Stephanie, this is to adjourn.
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Jack,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
Nate,
Aye.
and I as well. That's all, folks. Thanks. We'll see you next week.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Good weekend. Take care.